The fact that I'm in the same athletic department as Woody Hayes, Jesse Owens, and Archie Griffin, and I'll see the Ohio State logo, and I'm just like, is this real? The Ohio State bus only comes around once every how many years? My mom grew up in Northwest Ohio. It'd be hard to look her in the eye and say, oh yeah, by the way, Ohio State called, and I just kind of blew it off. The first time I sat down with Coach today, he asked me, what's your impression? And I said, Coach, you need to have some fun. I see this culture of positivity. The players had a player-only meeting, but who did they invite? They invited the head coach. That's powerful. Of course, football is going to drive the market, so they got a majority of that 18 million. But we want basketball to be competitive. We want volleyball to be competitive. We always can be on the right side of the equation. We need national standards. We need a national governing body. The way we've been governed has led us into the courtroom, and we haven't been very successful, in the courtroom, and thus, we're sitting here today. The game of sport, whether it's football or field hockey or golf or whatever, it means so much. How do we give these young people a chance to reach their full potential, period?
Welcome into the Next Up podcast. I'm Adam Breneman. We're coming to you today from Front Office Sports headquarters in New York City, Manhattan. Today's guest is one of the most powerful people in college sports, Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork. He's formerly the Athletic Director at Texas A&M, took them through a huge coaching change. Now he's the AD at Ohio State, one of the top programs in the country. Ross Bjork has seen it all. We dive into the business of college sports, NIL, realignment, what it takes to keep Ohio State at the very top. If you love sports, college football, this is a conversation you need to hear. He opens it all up. You guys will love it. Let's go talk to Ross Bjork. Ross, appreciate you doing this. Thanks for being at the Front Office Sports offices today.
Yeah, it's great to be here in New York City to join you. Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, excited to talk to you. I mean, there's so much to dive into about your career and college athletics now and the success you've had now at Ohio State. I want to go back to your first couple days on the job at Ohio State. When you walked into that office, what was going through your mind as I'm now the AD at one of the premier institutions in the world?
I still, even to this day, no matter where I've been, you pinch yourself just because you work in an enterprise that is able to give back to, young men and women who want to be developed, who want to compete at the highest level, who want to receive an education. I mean, you were a product of it. I was a product of college sports at a much smaller level, Division II at Emporia State, back when you had fullbacks back in the day. And so I pinched myself. And then you think about the brand of Ohio State, the Big Ten, the history, the legacy. Yeah. I mean, the fact that I'm in the same athletic department as Woody Hayes, and Jesse Owens and Archie Griffin, and you just have these sort of pinch yourself moments. When I literally said in meetings, and I'll see the Ohio State logo, and I'm just like, is this real? So, very, very blessed, very honored, very humbled. It's a big responsibility to know that you're the steward of a program where you've had these legendary athletic directors, Gene Smith, Andy Geiger, Lynn St. John was an athletic director at Ohio State for over 45 years. That doesn't happen, right? He's got the arena named after him. So it's really just a blessing, and I'm humbled, and I just sit there and say every day, what can we do to get better and make sure we protect, this program? And so those are the first couple moments of those first couple days on the job.
During that first week or so, as a leader, I'm sure you're analyzing the athletic department, the different programs. What were the things that you said, hey, we need to address this right away, or I want to change this, or I want to implement this right away?
Yeah. The thing that I really was able to study, so I had this 4-month overlap with Gene Smith, my predecessor. So I got in town on March 2nd, and I knew Gene. Like, we overlapped and served on some committees through the NCAA, and obviously Gene, is a legend in our business and still is to this day. But I had that 4-month overlap, and I was able to sit in meetings and not say anything unless they asked me. Unless they asked my opinion, my objective was not to say a word. But I really discovered that the culture at Ohio State is really powerful. Positive, morale is great, everybody gets along, and there's always things you have to work through, and there can be arguments and things like that, but the culture was really strong. But I also knew it was delicate, meaning that if the new guy comes in on day one and he's the smartest guy in the room and he starts changing a bunch of things, you could pierce that culture within hours, within minutes. And so I made sure that I really took my time to really analyze, okay, what do we need? And the things I kept hearing were, hey, we need to modernize some things. We need to adapt to some of the changing landscape. We need to innovate maybe some of our game day experience elements. We do have some facility projects and some aging technology. All the video boards and softball and baseball and our track and soccer complex, Jesse Owens Stadium, need to be upgraded. Ohio Stadium needs some new technology. So I knew that these things were out there. So it was mainly around, innovation. It was mainly around some technology things. We did change the way we were organized a little bit around how we oversee sports and how we manage the house case and revenue sharing and analytics and things like that. So most of it was around maintain the culture, but then innovate and modernize in this new era, but doing it the right way by communicating, by having a collaborative approach. That's what Ohio State has always been known for. And then the thing about Ohio State, there really is no ceiling. So there's still this tremendous upside that we keep discovering, if we do this, we can grow if we do this. So that's the exciting part, is there's really no ceiling from a business opportunity standpoint. So those are all the things that we're leaning into, going into, this fall.
Gene Smith is such a legendary athletic director. Is there any specific advice he gave you during those few months of overlap that stuck with you?
Don't mess it up. Hey, I'm giving you the keys. Don't mess it up. No, what he said was, look, the people here, lean into the people. Really, really rely on relationships, because people really genuinely want to help, and they want to help advise and counsel. He really, talked a lot about that. And then he just said that it's just such a special brand and a special opportunity that you always, use your voice when you need to, but always use it strategically. That you don't always have to say everything, but you can utilize the Ohio State voice in a strategic manner. But the main thing was, don't mess it up. I'm leaving this in pretty good shape. Don't screw this up. So Gene's great, and I still talk to him. That's awesome. All the time. I'm able to see him at different things, around the country. He's always going to be there, and just always respect, what he did, and it's our job to continue, the legacy.
The Ohio State AD job isn't one that comes open very often, and it's, as I said, it's one of the top ones in the country. What was the process like when you first learned of the possibility that, hey, the Ohio State job could be something that I'd be interested in, and how does that process actually go down? Guys, I've tried it all. Sports betting, daily fantasy sports. Prize Picks is by far the best way to get action on sports and the best way to make watching sports fun. I cannot watch a game without having to play on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, you're picking players instead of teams. So each player has a set stat projection. Say it's Patrick Mahomes, 250 yards passing. I just pick more or less for that stat, and then pair it with a couple other players, and then boom, you can win up to like 10x your money. The best part for all of my podcast viewers and listeners, Prize Picks is giving you $50 in lineups when you play just $5 if you use code NEXTUP or the link in the description. That's code NEXTUP, link in description, and you get $50 in lineups when you play just $5. Go lock it in right now. And guys, showing Prize Picks support helps me in this podcast a ton. So sign up with code NEXTUP. Help me out a little bit. And I'm telling you, you won't regret it. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's complicated, Adam. Look, when Gene announced his retirement, everybody in the country, oh wow, the Ohio State job. It hadn't been open in 19 years, right? And even when Gene got it, they targeted him, so it really wasn't an open search when he got it. And so I think a lot of curiosity on how are they going to go about the process. There was a new president that was hired. I had no inkling that I would even be on the list. Hadn't even thought about it. I'm at Texas A&M. I'm in the SEC. Been there for 12 years. We loved our time in the SEC. Our kids were thriving in College Station. School, sports. We loved our time at A&M. And the first time they called me, I was like, why? Why would you? Thanks, no thanks. I knew at Texas A&M we were going to have a football challenge, a decision-making process was going to unfold in one way, shape, or form in the fall of 2023. So I basically said, hey, thanks for calling. I understand I'm an experienced AD, but I've got my day job to focus on here at Texas A&M. And so I really just shut it down from day one. That was October or so of 2023. And then we did have to make a football decision. We did a coaching search, a big one, very high profile, right in the middle of all of that, obviously. And then about mid-December, it was basically they actually like the way you handled the football situation at Texas A&M. They like you as a candidate even more. Will you at least talk to them? And then I had to take a step back and say, okay, the Ohio State bus only comes around once every how many years? In this case, 20 years. I do have family ties in Ohio. My mom grew up in Northwest Ohio. It'd be hard to look her in the eye and say, oh yeah, by the way,
Pass that up.
Ohio State called, and I just kind of blew it off. Our oldest son was graduating high school, so life transition could make a little more sense. Our youngest son was going into the 8th grade in the fall of 2024. So we just kind of mapped everything out and said, you know what, if on your tombstone it's Ohio State as your last AD job, that's pretty darn good. Ohio ties for family. Couldn't really pass that up. And so the process basically from about mid-December until mid-January went pretty darn fast. President Carter is an amazing leader. Really, really blessed to be his first hire at Ohio State. There's alignment. People talk about alignment all the time. I really studied, okay, what's the board makeup? The alignment with the president, the alignment with the AD's office, the alignment with the head football coach. First time I sat down with Coach Day, I said, you know what, this is the right decision for me. He and I see things alike. I think we're built very similarly. So it just all made sense. But the process it's highly confidential. It's highly sensitive. The last thing I wanted to do was upset anyone at A&M. You don't want to, and I just hired Mike Elko. So that was hard. That was the biggest thing, is giving up the chance to work with him, knowing that he's going to really turn that around at Texas A&M. So there's a lot of things that go into it. It's complicated in many ways, but at the end of the day, what's best for you and your family? And how do you see yourself ending your career? And that's why Ohio State just made total sense. And it's Ohio State. It's the biggest brand
Tough to beat.
in college sports, so very tough to beat.
What was the moment you got the actual call that the job's yours if you want it?
Yeah, the President Carter, he called me on a Saturday, but he had just started at Ohio State, and he said, I need about a week though. Not to vet anything out, but I just need a week to kind of let it breathe. Ohio State had just come off a tough loss in the Cotton Bowl, coming off of the 2023 season. He wanted to let that breathe a little bit. He was just getting on campus, but he said, you'll have to trust me, but I need another week to go through, just my acclimation meaning his acclimation to Ohio State. And then we got on an airplane on Sunday. We met everybody on Sunday and Monday. I think Pete Thamel was the first one to leak it out.
He always
gets the scoop somehow. So that was about 12 noon on Monday, January 15th. And then from there, everything obviously was already done and it came together. And so it's just been an awesome, run since. And we're just, again, so blessed.
You mentioned Ryan Day. What was your first impression when you maybe went to their first practice or saw that program operate?
Yeah. The first time I sat down with Coach Day, we kind of laughed about this. He asked me, what's your impression? And I said, Coach, you need to have some fun. And again, this was coming off, right? We had just, the program had just lost to Missouri, had lost to the team up north the last game of the year. It was only a 14 playoff. Season's done, right? So it was tough. And I said, how do we have some fun? It's Ohio State football. Let's have some fun, knowing the expectations are there. And so just getting to know him personally, knowing what his plan was going into the spring of 2024, the fall of 2024, what the roster plan was, very intentional, very methodical. Everything he does is with a purpose. I saw the first couple spring practices that I saw. I see parents at the practice. I see this culture of positivity. I see how much the players really respect him and the command that he has, in the locker room. There's genuine love there. And I think the fact that we did lose 2 games in the 24 season and still won the national championship, to me only happens if you have a strong culture, if you have the respect and the love for the head coach. The players had a player-only meeting. But who did they invite? They invited the head coach. They said, we don't want anybody else there except you. That's powerful. That speaks. I mean, you've been in locker rooms. You know what that means. And so I've just seen this unbelievable leadership platform, the culture, the love, the respect. We have a player parent forum and a parent association. I've never seen that. I've never heard of that. So the players and the parents really, I think, have kind of ownership in the program, and I think that's a powerful tool. So, and then the football strategy, as good as it gets, has great assistant coaches, hired a great defensive coordinator, promoted Brian Hartline as the offensive coordinator. So he's always making sure the staff is keyed up, is always at the highest level. One, it's Ohio State, right? Yeah. But two, it's really who he is and who he can attract. So I've just been, so impressed with just how he handles every facet in this modern era of leading the program.
It had to be pretty cool for year one for you to have all the success in football that you guys had.
Right. It really was. And, it kind of goes back to the Gene Smith advice, don't mess it up. So now in year two, don't mess it up. Yeah. But no, it was really, again, face adversity, right? I mean, people said, make a change, shut the program down. I mean, we even had some people say we should not accept the playoff bid after losing that last game. And to me, look, that game will always mean what it means. You'll never de-emphasize the rivalry game. But again, it's a new era, and we were alive. And so just to have sort of that spark and, perhaps the way that game ended, perhaps the little skirmish at the end of the game, really ticked our players off and got them to really say, you know what, let's be who we are. We're good, we're talented, let's believe in that. They got behind coach, the coaches rallied the players and vice versa. So it was fun to watch. It was just fun to watch unfold. And the way we started out against Tennessee, I think everybody woke up and said, oh boy, that's the real Ohio State team. Here it comes.
You guys just won your week one game against Texas. Curious, as the AD at Ohio State, what's your game day like? Are you intense during the game? Are you hosting a bunch of donors? Like what do you?
A little bit of everything. This game was monumental with the pregame stuff, right? You had Big Noon kickoff show on site. You had Lee Corso's last game, and we wanted to make sure we really, really supported him and commemorated him. And so there was a lot of little things. There's going to be a plaque installed outside of St. John Arena where the stage normally sits for College Game Day. That'll be there permanently. That commemorates 1996, the first headgear pick. Commemorates last Saturday, the headgear pick on the 50-yard line. So all those things. So I was a big part of that. Normally, what I'll do is I'll get a golf cart, and we'll have kind of a targeted list of parking lots. So we'll go out and see folks in the RV lot. We'll go out and see folks in a different parking lot. There might be a donor tailgate that we stop by. Usually we're popping into tailgates. One of the things I really love about Ohio State, the tradition, is skull session. So our team does the team walk 2 hours before the game, but they always go into St. John Arena, which is the old basketball arena, and there's skull session. The band's there. Coach Day speaks, an assistant coach speaks, a player speaks. I've never seen that. I don't know what happened at Penn State. I don't think any player was speaking at a pep rally 2 hours before the game. And so I always go to skull session. I thought I may go to one or two, but I went to every one of them last year, and so I plan on not missing that. I think that's a really cool way to sort of get me in the mode, if you will. And then I go to the field about an hour before kickoff. I see all kinds of recruits. I'll see donors. I'll see sponsors. I'll greet the visiting athletic director. And then we are hosting people on game day in the AD's suite, but I'm watching the game. I don't want to miss a play. I don't want to miss a play, one, if something happens maybe around officiating, if a young man would happen to be injured, if somebody makes a great play. I love to go in the locker room after the game and say, hey, that third down play, that was a key play, Adam. Great catch, great first down. Again, building connections with the players. So I really want to watch the game. And then I go down in the fourth quarter to the sideline because then I can go in the locker room. And there's actually a clip of me, my son pointed it out. So we stopped Texas. It was 4th and goal, and the pass was kind of thrown to the corner of the end zone. And I didn't realize I was that close, but we make the stop, we deflect the ball, and I'm down there like pumping my fist. And I probably stepped a little too far out, and so the camera didn't. And my son was like, "Dad, is that you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I was getting I was getting fired up. You want to show emotion, you want to have fun in the moment. So otherwise, I try to stay calm, but I want to celebrate when it's right. So Maurice Claret, he's been coming down and he's been on our sideline this year and last year. And usually I'm down there with him because, one, he knows football, so he can analyze what's happening. Yeah. But then he gets excited, and so he and I were high-fiving and hugging each other at the end of the Texas game. So we just try to have fun. We try to engage. We try to have fun. We try to soak in the moments, and there's nothing better than college football.
Yeah. From a football standpoint at Ohio State, you have probably access to all the resources you could want at a place like Ohio State. But what are the things, maybe when in your meeting with Coach Day, where you wanted to improve the football program right away in year one? Were there a couple of things that you kind of thought were really important?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we talked about, sort of modernizing and innovating. One of the things a lot of people told me was the sort of in-game experience and, kind of hyping that to a different level. We see lights and we see flashing things that are happening. Obviously the SEC, I think, was on the cutting edge of installing these lights. I mean, we see what happens, right, for the whiteout game, at Penn State, where everybody's in unison. And so how do we create those kind of opportunities? So we definitely talked about the in-game experience. Our Woody Hayes complex, there's a lot of great things about it, but there's a lot of functional things that are just out of date. Our team meeting room, with as big a staff size that we have and as many players that we have, our team meeting room is not big enough to hold everybody in one room. Yeah. How do we make our building a little more efficient? So we're working on some plans to do that. We installed 2 outdoor artificial turf fields summer before last. So there's constant things that we're looking at. So there's a few little things. There's longer term things. There's game day experience things. And then obviously, look, you've got to be on the cutting edge for NIL, right? Yeah. So how do we continue to build out our third-party NIL ecosystem and be aggressive in that space, knowing that everyone has the same amount of money on the rev share side, but how do we differentiate on the third-party NIL? So constantly evolving around those topics.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask about that next. With revenue sharing in college sports, I've always said, once everyone has the same cap, everyone's back at zero, right? Yeah. Basically, no competitive advantage. So, 2-part, how are you approaching revenue sharing from just a cap standpoint and managing the salary and how much goes to different school or different programs sports, and different sports, and just managing that piece, and then also the outside of revenue sharing NIL, the true commercial NIL, and making sure that you guys have the money to hit the higher echelon of what you got to have to win championships.
Yeah, this is we were talking earlier about what does an AD do? Well, everything, right? But this piece of it is probably just as critical, moving into this era. So you're right. Everyone has the same amount of money, $20.5 million. However, we had a new scholarships. And because we had a new scholarships as part of the settlement, we had to take that off the top. So we essentially had $18 million. And we took 4 sports, women's volleyball, women's basketball, men's basketball, and football. Of course, football is going to drive the market. So they got a majority of that 18 million. But we want basketball to be competitive. We want volleyball to be competitive. So we tried to have a good matrix, a good spread to make sure that each sport had enough to work with. And then the next sort of arms race, I think, in our enterprise is going to be who can build out the third-party NIL system the best. Yeah. And can you have a for certain amount of money that, again, is above the cap, that has to go through all the clearinghouses, all the systems, valid business purpose, but can you essentially have a marketing fund that you can then match make, Adam, the tight end, with the company? Yeah. And then it has to go through all the clearinghouse piece. So we have that system built. We're monetizing it now. We're building out the resources for that. There's a lot of creative things that are happening in the space around the country that we're all monitoring, and apparel deals are getting shifted around. And I mean, your alma mater looks like may shift if that happens. Tennessee just shifted. So being collaborative and creative with our partners, looking at how does Learfield, that they have our rights, how do they build out a system? How do we take existing partners and go to them and say, would you be willing to take some of that money and shift it towards NIL and benefit the athletes? So those are all the things that are happening right now. But you're right, Ohio State, we always can be on the right side of the equation. We can always be on the leading edge. How we build it out, how it's structured, those are all the things that we're all working on.
Yeah.
It is evolving. There's interpretations, there's rules that have not been published.
Yeah.
The College Sports Commission, right, is figuring a lot of these pieces out. So there are still some moving parts around clarity, but I think we're mapping, towards what the structure can and should be.
One of the really interesting things about decisions you have to make and just the structure of an athletic department right now is donor money. And do you want that donor money to backfill the $20.5 million you got to come up with? Because that's an added expense on your books that you didn't have before.
Right.
Do you want it to go to outside of revenue sharing NIL? The other thing is, you think about the facilities race in college sports for so long. I mean, every year schools were improving their facilities. Now I saw the Maryland head coach Mike Loxley had a comment, like they just built a new facility. He's like, we missed the timing because the guys will get changed in a trash can for $500K. Like, well, they don't care about the facility anymore because they're getting paid. Same reason that NFL facilities aren't that nice. I mean, you look around at NFL places, they're not like college facilities. So how are you balancing all of that? Like where the money goes? Do you still do facility upgrades? Do you keep it for NIL, for other things?
Yeah. I think what facilities will take on in the future are, you still have to have nice things for the players to train, to be developed, to recover. Recovery is a big deal now, right? What do the cold tubs look like? What does the cryo look like? What does the float tanks look like? So recovery is a big piece of it, because the athlete's going to ask that.
No doubt.
Hey, how am I going to recover from just playing against Texas, right? Or Penn State, right? So I think recovery rooms, I think weight rooms, training rooms. Again, do you have to build waterfalls and slipper slides and putt-putt golf courses? No. I don't think you have to do that. But the performance piece and the teaching piece, those things are not going away. So the key word is going to be balance. How do we balance out the need, a true need to upgrade a facility, and then can that facility produce revenue? So your stadiums, that's the balance. How do we take care of general fan amenities, restrooms, concessions, concourses, but then have a premium product that will generate the revenue? So I think you're going to see facilities take on, can it generate revenue, and does it make the player better?
Yeah.
To me, those things should not go away. So all of it is a conversation about what's the donor interested in. In the new NIL world, if they have a business, could they shift those to marketing dollars? Great, we'll have that conversation. But the facility piece, we need to build it. We have hockey. Hockey's a big deal at Ohio State. We need to get a hockey arena off the ground. Penn State, I know, built one. I know we're alluding a lot to Penn State, your alma mater, but they're a good comparator. They built one. We need to build a new hockey arena. We have an aging arena. Our men play in the Schottenstein Center, which is our basketball arena. So facilities are never going to go away. I think they may just take on a different purpose and a different scope, but you're still going to have a nice facilities to attract and also to attract revenue and fan support.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on the governing structure of college sports. Such a hot topic right now. I don't think I'm out of line in saying that the NCAA has struggled in some regards to govern college sports in the NIL era. We have the College Sports Commission. We have there's talk of the power conferences possibly governing themselves. What do you think it looks like in the future? What's the actual solution to get true governance for college athletics?
Look, I'm a big believer that we need national standards. We need a national governing body. I don't think anyone would disagree with that piece of it per se. The problem is the way we've been governed has led us into the courtroom. And we haven't been very successful, in the courtroom. And thus, we're sitting here today. I think part of if you take a history lesson, we never really adapted to technology. Think about if we would have allowed people to monetize YouTube. Think about if we would have said, hey, Adam, what number were you?
81. Yeah.
81 is in this video game. He looks like you. He's got blonde hair. He's 6'5".
Yeah, that was crazy.
Hey, you know what? Here's $1,000 to be in that game, right? Hey, we're going to put your name, image, likeness on a poster with a Coke logo. Here's $500.
Yeah.
We never adapted to modern technology and modern innovation the way we should have around name, image, likeness, which put us in this spot. So I do think the NCAA can govern academics. I think they can govern playing rules. I think they can run championships. I do think our conferences have to have much more of a voice, and we've already seen a lot of those changes. And then because of the way enforcement has taken place around basically the financial arrangement between the institution and the athlete, we lost confidence in that model, right? What inducements, pay for play, we lost confidence. So we shifted that where the College Sports Commission is run by the conferences. And really it's the 4 autonomy conferences that have set it up, and then those programs that opt in. So we're gonna have this structure. But I think what you'll see is you'll see more consolidation around, okay, these programs have more resources, they can govern themselves differently. And there, a lot of ways there's an acknowledgement that that's already happened. And there's been a shift in NCAA governance, the voting structure in Division I has already shifted. So I think we're getting to that place where the conferences can have more say so. The College Sports Commission needs to get up and running. We need to have a durable system. We need to have sustainability within the system. So I think we're on the right track. But we also need some federal legislation to codify a lot of these things. And without that, we could still be in the courtroom. We could still have state by state law that could all of a sudden supersede a federal, court case. So there's still some steps to be taken, but I think we're on the right track. I think we have a good roadmap. We just need to get there, and we need to communicate when to get there. And so those are the things that we're working on right now.
How many teams should be in the college football playoff?
Selfishly, we could go back to 4, and I think Ohio State would be in a good spot most years, right? 12 I think was great last year. I mean, obviously, we benefited from that by being in the 12-team playoff. Here's what I don't think anyone can argue with. If we have more high-profile games where the regular season means more for more teams, right now you could say that the regular season is probably 12 to 16 to 20 teams, where it means something in November. What if that's 40 teams where we have a shot, and these games just become way more intense? I don't think anyone can argue with more high-profile football games, with more content that drives more revenue, which then goes back to the players. So if it's 16, 20, 24, 28, to me, that's where we need to get to, because I think that is healthy for the game. I think that creates more interest. If you really think about it, we're playing these games already in a different format. Conference championship games. And then you think about a lot of these high leverage bowl games outside of the New Year's Six, you'll see a 9-3 team play a 10-2 team a lot of times. No one complains about that. If that is housed within a playoff structure, that game gets elevated, right? More viewership. So to me, hopefully we can take a step back. Hopefully we can get through this fall. Look, it may be hard to change some things immediately for 2026, but if we can get through this fall, if we can come up with some good models, everybody gets hung up on the access piece. Automatic qualifiers, at-large bid. Let's take a step back. Let's really look at the data. Let's really study this. We're a proponent of expansion. We're a proponent of automatic qualifying spots. It's probably where it would end up anyway. But hopefully through this fall, we can come up with a good solid plan that everybody can get around, and let's move forward.
One of the most important roles that you have as an AD is hiring coaches and making those hires that can really change the trajectory of an athletic department. What are the things you look for in a coach, no matter what the sport, when you're saying, hey, this is someone who can lead our program?
Yeah, look, clearly you want somebody that has a proven track record of winning. Maybe it's as an assistant coach, they've been around it, they've seen it, but I think just a proven track record of success, I think is something that you can't really teach. You can't really learn, you can't really read that in a book per se. I always want somebody who has a program identity where they can say, this is what we're going to stand for, this is going to be our playing style, this is going to be our identity as core values. I always want somebody that can articulate that. Clearly, they got to know the X's and O's. That's basic to. But in this era, can they recruit in this era? Can they understand that there's still the academic piece, the fundamentals of college sports, but also be able to talk about NIL and revenue sharing and the ability to almost negotiate, if you will. You have to have that skill set now. And then just somebody that just does it the right way. Does it the right way, is intense, but also loving to the athlete, right? There's a balance there. So those are the things that we always go through when we have a sort of a profile of a head coach, but a program identity, energy around recruiting, adapting to this changing landscape, but also knowing it's still an educational component because people want to hear about that. They really do. And so those are the things that we look for when we're hiring a coach.
What part of the job gives you the most energy? Is it the coaching searches? Like, do you really thrive on those?
I think it's just the competition and just being around the athletes and really seeing, again, there's a lot of talk, right, about money and NIL and revenue share, but there's a purity of the game and of the sport where when the ball's kicked off, tipped off, when there's a face-off in field hockey or lacrosse, no one cares about that.
No one's talking about it.
Because it's about competition. So to me, the biggest thrill is when you're watching a game and you're watching your athletes compete, and then after the game, you win that game and you're like, great game. That's what they came there for. They came there to compete and be developed. So that gives me the most excitement. That's why I'm optimistic about the future, that we can figure this out because it offers so much. And it's really those moments that it offers that we can't forget about.
Last couple of things I got for you. I appreciate all your time. If you go back to day one as AD at Western Kentucky, your first job, what advice would you give yourself right now?
Probably you can't worry about everything, right? Only control what you can control. When you're at a job like that, you think, oh, I've got to do everything. I've got to be involved in this. I've got to say something about this. It's not possible, right? Just, you let things happen, be involved where you need to be involved, control what you can control. I was never a micromanager per se, but there's a lot of things that you just can't control. And as long as you're doing what you think you should be doing around culture and around leadership and staffing and those kind of things, the rest you kind of have to let play out. So I would say a little more patience, a little, more hands-off than what maybe those days look like.
It's got to be tough because ultimately you're responsible for it all.
Right.
But so you kind of want to have your hands in everything.
That's exactly right. You have to know enough about everything without getting too deep.
Make sure it's not getting screwed up.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Last question for you. What's your why? What's the reason you do what you do every day?
It goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. I played the sport. I was given so much, again, much different level. I mean, you talk about purity, Division II football. I played for a hard-nosed coach who taught me so much about toughness and, grit and determination. I've got two sons who are athletes. One plays at Youngstown State and the other one's a ninth grade football player. I just think the game itself, the game of sport, whether it's football or field hockey or golf or whatever, it means so much. And so the why for me is, how do we give these young people a chance to reach their full potential, period? And there's a lot of things that go into that, a lot of technical things, but at the end of the day, to have an athlete either come back 5 years from now or a year after they graduated and say, I was impacted because of sport and the athletic department helped me, no matter if they ever talk to me or not, it doesn't matter. But our job is to provide those resources. So the why for me is that there's an impact that's going to be made for the rest of our lives, and we get to do this and we get to provide those opportunities. So that's what I think about every single day when we wake up.
It's awesome. I appreciate all your time.
Thanks a lot,
fun
Adam.
Talking to you. Excited to all your success and excited to see what football season looks like for Ohio State. It's off to a good start.
Absolutely. November 1st.
No doubt.
Big matchup. Big matchup. All right.
Appreciate
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up.